Have you ever noticed that we can receive 100 compliments, but it's the one maybe slightly negative comment that we remember? It might not have even been that negative. It probably wasn't even ill-intentioned, but it's the one thing that sticks in our minds. And then we generalize it and we start to believe that everyone thinks that, or that's just the way I am, or I've always been that way, or yeah, I'm pretty much hopeless. And we get really down on ourselves when it could have been something just as insignificant as the way we fix our hair. My name's Lynn Weimar, and I am the founder of Be Fit Beyond 50, and I'm here to help women over 50 transform their lives and start living their very best life. And part of that idea of living our very best life is learning how to silence the naysayers. And that doesn't mean that we're telling people not to ever say anything negative about us or anything else like that, but to stop being ruled by casual, careless, even ill-intentioned comments that other people make, or judgments or opinions that they might have around us. Oftentimes, in spite of our best intentions, not to let them bring us down, we come away from their company feeling deflated and defeated. We're thinking, maybe she was right. Maybe I never will lose that weight. Maybe I really can't turn this around. Maybe all my efforts are for nothing. And maybe I'm too old. Maybe it really is too late. And it could have been just a raised eyebrow that brought all those thoughts up in our minds. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen when I had some of the very most prominent voices in my life directly telling me that I was crazy. I allowed the inner voice to be louder than all that noise. And I allowed myself the luxury of following my dream and my passion. So I'm 62 now. I'm very proud of my age. But I was in my late 30s. I had been pretty much either pregnant or nursing for the previous 16 years. And I had rediscovered in my life, after being pretty sedentary for those 16 years, rediscovered the joy of running. And all of a sudden, I felt more alive and more free and healthier and happier than ever. And there was a learning curve. I had to learn how to run properly. I battled the injuries. I had to overcome them, but I just kept going. And I learned that I could be too gung ho and I could try to do too much too soon. I had to learn patience. I learned that there were answers and I was dedicated enough. I loved what I was doing enough to find them and apply them. But the very biggest lesson that I learned was to follow my passion and find my joy And also along the way, I learned just to kinda keep quiet about it because other people were threatened by this and, not worry about rocking other people's boats who, they actually thought I was pretty much, losing my mind and ruining my life and, basically flushing my life down the drain with all this running I was doing. But I just kept quietly getting more fit and more healthy, and I kept following my passion. And I didn't die. I didn't ruin my life. I did not ruin anybody else's life in the process. I had more to give. I had more energy, more joy that would seep out to those around me. And then my life got more stressful and more complicated, and that little flame started to die out. And my life really turned upside down. And this was in my later 40s. And the doubt just kind of settled in like fog. And I started thinking maybe those people were right after all. Maybe it wasn't too late before, but maybe now it really is too late. Maybe I really am just too old. Maybe it just started a little later for me than for other people because they were telling me this was going to happen at 40, but it was happening at 50 instead, or close to 50. And I was thinking, well, at least I got an extra 10 years out of the deal. But I went from being a fit, active, homeschooling mom up in the mountains, living in my dream location, dream home, to 50 years old, menopausal, raising my two youngest sons in a little apartment right next to the freeway. And it didn't happen overnight, but time has a way of condensing when we look back on it. And in the interim, through all that stress and turmoil, I started to put on weight and I became less active and my fitness went on the back burner. And that weight just kept creeping on. And I needed to start a new career. I needed to support myself and my two youngest sons. And I was admitted to nursing school. And if I thought I was busy before and didn't have time to take care of myself before, I really didn't then. I was working a low paying full time job as a CNA while going to nursing school. And I hoped that I could turn around on that path and not keep gaining weight and being stressed out and tired once I got out of nursing school, but I really wasn't so sure. And I got less sure every year as the scale kept going up instead of down. And for the first time in my adult life, I started looking into dieting. My first encounter with dieting involved counting calories because that's what everybody does, right? And that lasted maybe a week. It was way too cumbersome for me. And I soon realized that the more I focused on food, the more I would eat. So the weight issue went even farther on the back burner and the weight just kept creeping on. And I eventually got remarried. I shouldn't say eventually. I got remarried fairly soon after that, and my life was moving along on a much happier note. And finally, I was a registered nurse with a nice home and a good income. And one day in my mid 50s, I was standing next to my husband's hospital bed, which we converted our living room into a room for him because he had severe problems, and we had a hospital bed for him there in our front room. And I was standing there, and I remember grabbing that roll of fat around my middle that had accumulated there and just feeling so disgusted with myself. Like, how did I ever let this happen? And my dear husband said, "It doesn't make any difference to me. I love you fat or thin. I I love you however you are. It's fine." And I appreciated the sentiment, but it really didn't help. And I went into the bathroom and I looked at this body that I had been ignoring. And how did I get from being an athlete in my 40s to an extra 25 or 30 pounds around my middle? And I couldn't believe that had happened to me when just, it hadn't been that long before I was at this pinnacle of fitness. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had an inner identity. It hadn't shown up on the outside for a long time, but it was still alive in there, inside me, and it was that inner athlete, and she showed up that day, not outwardly. I didn't look like an athlete, but on the inside, and I would love to tell you that everything turned around right then on that day, but it didn't. But it started in the right direction. That was the day that I just decided that things were gonna be different. I was gonna start taking care of my health again. And I stepped out into my neighborhood subdivision for a run, and it was applaud. Not applaud, plod. And I could feel the fat jiggling at my sides, and it did not feel good. And I could remember those days where I was floating along and the miles just passed by effortlessly. And right in that moment, it hit me. I can't be somewhere where I'm not. And maybe that doesn't sound very profound, because of course I can't be where I'm not. If I'm here, by definition, I'm not somewhere else. I'm not there. And wishing I was in a different place than where I am right now is futile. And when we live in that place, we're living in a place of regret and shame and blame and guilt. And I realized I could beat myself up for where I was right then and start lamenting, why did I ever let myself get this way? I'm 25 or 30 pounds heavier than when I was for a 40 something runner. And I would never choose to put a 25-pound pack on my back to go out for a run. That would not feel good on my joints. And I'd had brief times of getting back in shape in those previous 10 years. I hadn't been totally sedentary, but I never reached that level that I had in my early 40s. But right in that moment, I knew that I had some work to do if I was going to bring that lean, healthy runner body back to life. And wishing, regretting, kicking myself, that wasn't going to do it for me. The thing that I knew right then was that I needed to accept myself, love myself exactly where I was right there in that moment, because I can't be somewhere where I'm not. I can only be here. And I can complain about it, I can fight against it, but that doesn't change the facts of the matter. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because the same thing holds true whether you're 50, 100, 200 pounds overweight. Kicking yourself for where you are gets you bruised shins and not a whole lot else. So you might as well embrace it. And that's what I did in that moment. I allowed myself to settle into the reality of where I was and stop fighting against it. And once I did that, then I could start to dream. I could envision what I really wanted for myself. But that dream came from a place of empowerment. It was no longer just wishful thinking. And there's a big difference between wishful thinking and that place of empowerment. And it's only a tiny shift. Excuse me. It's only a tiny shift in thinking, but it leads to two completely different outcomes. And if you would like to know more, I recommend that you watch my free masterclass. Um, and I've got it posted in above or below this video, and you can go there and watch that. And then you can decide if you'd like to have a discussion with me about where you are and where you'd like to go. So thanks so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon, and have a great day. All right. Bye.